Alright, guys. It's been, I want to say, 2 weeks now since the Battle Cry 2017 tournament. This was my first tournament since August of last year. So, it's been a while. Um, this video is going to be a quick rundown of my army right before I start actually doing the battle report games. And I did something slightly different. I don't know how it's going to work out, and I don't know whether or not y'all are going to enjoy it or not, but we'll see how it works out. Basically, my normal videos, the actual bat rep portion is me just recording the end of the turn, the player turn, and saying, hey, this happened, this happened, this happened, whatever. So what I'm going to try this time around for this tournament is the next 5 videos for my tournament games are all going to be still pictures a la Once Bitten. So it's going to be the pictures. It's like a slideshow, me talking over it, and hopefully remembering what the fuck happened a couple weeks ago, which is the main reason I don't normally do just picture stuff, is because half the time I forget what the hell happened. So when I record it, I don't have to fucking do anything or remember stuff and screw things up. But anyways, basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over my army, like I said, here in this video, and then I'll probably put a link to this video in the video, or the 5 games for Battle Cry, so that I don't have to add in the full list. You can just go back to it and listen to this video. So I'll go over the army list real quick first, and then get into the pictures and my thought process before the tournament and all that good stuff. Alright, as you can see, here is my lovely army. I actually the reason I made this list was, one, I wanted to put a damn dragon in there, or I wanted to use the Archaon model. 2, I didn't want to paint anything for this tournament because life was just so busy already. I didn't need to add in rush painting a bunch of stuff just to get ready for a tournament. And 2, the only other thing I did painting wise was I just redid the bases a little bit. So I put gray paint on all of them and then dry brushed them, or washed them, dry brushed them, to make them actually look decent and not shitty like they were before. So my list, starting out with my badass general on a dragon, I got a Lord of Lust with Burning Blade of Chaos, Lucky Shield, Potion of Strength on a Wasteland Dragon. Basically, he's just there to scare the shit out of people. And, I mean, he did that, but I think the first game he didn't get into combat, second game he got into combat, third game he got some combat. He got combat he pretty much got combat in every other game other than game 1. And if you follow Green Dragon Gaming's channel, you probably already know why. Spoiler alert. Anyways, then down in front of him is my Wrath Priest. He's got the Hero Sword, Hardened Shield, Talisman of Shielding, and Crown of Scorn. So he's got a 2-up, 6-up with 5 attacks or 4 attacks at Strength 5, but he's hitting at Initiative 2. Then in front of him is my 15-man block of Wasteland or Warriors of Wrath with halberds, with full command and the gleaming icon. Notice how I went to them and there wasn't actually a BSB in there. Yeah, I went with no BSB. It didn't actually. I don't feel like it screwed me all that much, and I didn't really miss him that bad. But I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 frenzy units: the 2 blood beasts, the 2 crushers, and the 2 fallen. So with the 18-inch leadership 9, it wasn't that bad. But next we have, let's see, the two fallen units. The first one in front is Mark the Lust. If you can see, you can barely see behind him. I got the little marker on there. It's basically the what's it called? The Lust or the Slanesh symbol from the War Shrine kit. Also on my general's base, right behind, directly behind the Wrath Priest, is a little shield that I've painted up as a token to show the lucky shield on him. And then you also see next to or in between the right crusher unit and the left crusher units, they have a little token in there for demon weapons and lances, and then I have another one for the knights in the back. So then I have the 5 Wasteland Knights with lances, marked True Chaos. They were actually probably one of my better units. I think I might actually go ahead and make like pretty much any list that I have from now on is probably gonna have at least one unit of knights in them. Then I have, as I said, crushers, one unit with all my models or all my units that can have musicians, minus the Hell Riders, have them. Um, Only the warriors have full command and the like a banner. So, anyways, the Crusher Knights with lances and a musician, and then another unit of Crusher Knights with demon weapons and lances. 5 Hell Riders with shields, so they have the 3-up armor save, make them a little more survivable and piss people off. And then 2 Blood Beasts, one attached to the Dragon Lord and one attached to the Wrath Priest. So that is my list there. I'm going to go over, for those of you who were just here to see what the list was, that's what it is. And I will go over each unit and what my plan was with each of them here now. So if you were just here to see what the list was, then you can drop off and continue whenever I get the battle reports, go back to watching that. Alright, so my fallen units. I play tested this list against my buddy's dwarves, and the fallen were just amazing. This was the first time I've actually used them outside of, I think, Universal Battle. And I think with Universal Battle I only used them like maybe at like 2 games. But these guys, I had them basically just chaff hunt and get in people's way. The frenzy kind of like I it's a gamble when you play with frenzy units, especially if they're supposed to be your chaff. But they did what they needed to do and got in people's way and killed chaff and whatnot. Um, I those guys are actually made out of, if you're wondering, they're Marauders mashed with Beastmen, and I basically just took the uh, Beastmen bodies and threw Marauder heads on them to make them look kind of like mutants or something like that. I think they turned out pretty freaking awesome. Um, but yeah, the 5 of them. If you, especially if you roll a freaking 3 on the D3, then 4 attacks each is pretty freaking baller. Um, yeah. Anyways, on to the next one. All right, next up we have my Hell Riders. I have not used these guys in forever, even though like on the forums I like praise how awesome they are. Um, so I wanted to bring them back for this tournament. um, these guys are awesome. They have Vanguard. They're move 10, so basically they can be behind enemy lines turn 1. Um, the whips, they're still awesome. All you got to do is hit with them. They're a little weaker than what they used to be back in like V1, I think. But and the Hell Riders themselves are kind of weaker because they used to have lightning reflexes, which made them actually really good, really good chaff, where they could actually hit shit in it. But for the most part, these guys, I basically had them as my vanguard and to try and take out like war machines and other people's chaff that was going to get annoying. And they did their job from what I, yeah, they definitely did their job for the most part. But yeah, not much else to say about them. They're awesome. All right, next up we have my Wrath Halberd Warriors. Um, I love running these guys. Most of the time when I have warriors, they are marked Wrath with halberds. Um, they're freaking awesome. They hit everything on almost everything on a 2-up. They're T4, Strength 4, Strength 5 with the halberds, and they have 2 attacks each. Sad that they lost the Inspire Greatness from the characters, but what are you gonna do? A note on them. I know the community has been like very vocal about the fact that the new book, the core warriors, are no longer gonna be able to have marks. Um, Personally, I remember playing back when only ones that had marks were characters, and then they added in like the chosen, who then had marks, and warriors didn't actually have marks until later, like editions, like I think seventh or eighth. Um, Honestly, losing marks now, and I'm not gonna say anything about it because I can't, but what they have or what's being proposed in the new book or for the new book, the Warriors are still going to be awesome. Marks aren't going to you're not going to miss mark. Well, you might miss marks a little bit, but you're not going to miss them all that much. On another note with regards to marks on Warriors and their like paint scheme, like I know there's a lot of people that have entire units like painted specifically for the 4 gods or whatever. And for me, I think I have one unit that I painted for Brawler's Bash a few years ago of Pestilence or Nurgle Warriors, Sword and Board, when they were pretty gross and not able to be hit on anything but like 5s or 6s or some crazy shit. Um, but for the most part, the main paint scheme that I've always gone with and that had played in with my fluff for my armies back in the day was red armor with the black helms. And then as you can see on the banner, they got like the little red bloody hand. And then I think you probably can't see it too well, but on the actual helmets, they have like painted like red down there. Like I think there's one, my champion, which is not in there because he was he's the one with the one axe and the shield. But I think I had him. I put actually painted a hand on his face as well, and they were like the hands of my general. Like the whole backstory I used was my general's name was Charon Ball, and basically his armor was, I think, I think it was like Crimson Armor of Dargon, the one where it was like he was trapped. Like the armor was worn by hundreds of champions, and each one's soul was trapped inside, and essentially like the fluff behind it was like the guy was like the scourge of whatever, and when they finally killed him, all they found left of his armor was an empty shell and the smell of brimstone or whatever, which I always loved. And I actually had my general model that I used was the original Archaon, or not the original Archaon, but the one on this big demon steed with a 50 mil base, and I had different heads that I would swap out, each one marked with a specific god, and basically I was gonna, I didn't get to do it, but I was planning on having a unit of knights being like his helmet bearers or his helm bearers. So like they'd have their weapon, and then in the other hand they'd have whatever helmet he's not wearing, basically. And it all tied into my army essentially. But I kind of went off on a tirade there. In regards to the actual like painting schemes and stuff, personally, I know some people on the forums have voiced their angst on it and talking about how they're not going to be able to play their entire like painted themed army or whatever because the 4 marks are now 7 and whatnot. But I mean, this is a hobby. If you put all that effort in there to make your guys look a specific way, to be part of a specific god, then just fucking make up fluff of your own to tie them into a specific mark or a specific god coming up. Because just because they're not marked doesn't mean they can't still worship or follow a god. They're trying to get that mark, so wouldn't they paint their armor or do whatever the god that they are following would look well upon or look down on and go, oh hey, good job, buddy, here's a mark. Now you're chosen. So if like with sloth and gluttony, you could do the way I see it, sloth and gluttony would be good for Nurgle. So if you have a green army, a block of warriors painted green with pus and nastiness coming off all and bloated and shit, that's perfect for a sloth or gluttony army like unit. So they could be, still not so much marked by the god, but the god sees them and so has given them slight gifts of you know big fat feasts and whatnot, whatever. You know what I'm getting at. Either way, I don't think it's the end of the world that they've changed it up to 7 gods instead of 4. Now you just have more new fluff that you can go out and do yourself. And if it's really that big of a deal and you've come here from Warriors of Chaos and Warhammer and you don't like the fluff that they do, then just ignore it. It's as simple as that, in my opinion. If you don't like it, just keep playing with the fluff from Warhammer. Because I know there's a lot of guys in like my local scene that are like that. They just want to play Warhammer like fluff. They love the fluff. And don't get me wrong, I love the fluff too. But in my mind's eye, the new fluff is good so far. I like it. I've liked the way it's going, and it opens up so many more possibilities for me in modeling and painting, and that's the biggest like draw from me there is for me is the customization of the models. Granted, the customization of the rule set is nice too, but the model is you don't see the rules really. It's what you see is the models, and that's what gives you the satisfaction of hey, this is a pride unit or this is a like wrath unit or whatever. So just be creative and don't like some people's reactions have been kind of negative, like really negative, and they just need to chill the fuck out, basically, in my opinion. And like I said, if you don't like fluff or you don't like where they're going with it, then just use the fluff that you apparently love so much. It's not that hard to do. Alright, so moving on. Next we have my Demon Weapon Crushers. They have the demon weapons, you can tell, but because I had a second unit and I was bored of painting at the time, I made the extra little token of a demon weapon just because. Um, these guys, they were the infantry grinders. They're they have the strength 5 at all times, so they were there to basically just get into infantry and start wailing away. One thing I do love about I need to do a better job of painting him, but the center guy was actually a character that I had converted up. So there's a lot of extra little skulls that I threw on him. As you can see on the his axe, I took leg bones, I think, from like the vampire counts models, like the skeletons, and wrapped them around there, and then wrapped some chain around. I really love the fucking chain. Like I've had to buy more. And then they had like skulls hanging off of the chains and that kind of thing. And then I loved this part. I love that like the helmet. You'll see that helmet a lot, like with the curved horns. I think that was like one of my favorite helmets configurations. So on this one, I think this is the plastic one, but all my Charon Ball like general guys had these horns helmet with uh like big tusks coming out of their face. But this guy, has, I cut like the flat part, or cut the front of his face flat, and then took a skeleton model head and cut the back half of it off and glued it on his face, and then made it look like he's got like this skull face. And then also, I was obviously the skull between his horns was wrapped around with, again, chain. Then I have his shield is the one, the Slanesh boob, like tit snake character. I stole that and basically just plastered some skulls on top of it so you couldn't see the Slanesh symbol. And it's basically like the way, if you can't really see from the picture, I don't think, but there's like the shield is a crescent, and in the crescent, it's like I wanted to, like, I shaved it down a little bit to like make it look kind of like sharp. So it was like a he was able to use his shield as a, like, head chopping off instrument as well. And there's like a little like splash of blood across it, like he looks like he just like uppercutted somebody's head off or something. But yeah, love that model. On to my next crusher unit. All right, so next unit of crushers is my lance ones, as you can see from the Stormcast little lance shoved into the ground on the token there. Um, like I said, I only had musicians in here, and the models that I had, the only other two models that I had out of the seven, I think, crushers that I have actually built, there was only two banner guys left, so I just threw them in there and ensured I told the opponent that that's what it was. Um, I really like these models because basically they were the crushers, but I also took, like, this, like the one on the far right has the crusher, like the mount has two horns popped in on it. I think I'm pretty sure I added those in. I don't think that was actually part of it originally. But I also took the bloodletter um, sprue, and the two on the right have the bloodletter arms on them, and then obviously they're like Hellblades or whatever the hell they're called. Same with the other unit had the bloodletter Hellblades. But then I also took heads from the bloodletters, and then I took the crushers had like the guy without a helmet, and I just basically bronzed up the bloodletter faces and glued them on as like masks, where they're like basically trying to emulate the uh, bloodletters. But I really like I really need to fucking do a better job of the crushers because they are essentially just black, bronze, and then a wash. And I think I need to do a little bit better of job on the actual crusher unit armor as well, because the red is just a wash. And I think it was like I always do, I just sat there and did a batch of painting before a tournament, and that's what resulted is those guys. So on to the next unit. Uh, oh, forgot to mention for the crushers with the lances, those guys basically were there to go into the bigger, scarier things in hopes of hitting with strength 6 on the charge from the lances, and then the pure volume of attacks to hopefully get stuff down, like going into fucking Gore-Tex or big heavy armor units or fucking A-Rocks. Because when I played my brother, I actually had a unit go into one of his, when it had his dual Gargantula list. Um, a unit of lance guys just hit him and melted it and ran right through him. So the lances on the crushers are quite nice. Um, so anyways, these guys are my 5 True Chaos Knights with lances and musician. Um, as you can see, the theme of black armor, or sorry, red armor, black helms went in with these guys as well. The reason these guys have grass on their bases is because I used them as Black Knights when I played my VC for Brawlers, I think 2 years ago. Um, but these guys are the better painted ones out of my Knights. I think I still need to do some edging on their armor and some highlights for the bone stuff on there. But other than that, I'm actually very pleased with how these guys turned out. The champion right in the center, if you remember what those guys originally looked like. He had the like a no helmet on his head, and then had like a dumb little like side ponytail on the top of it, like going off, coming from the top of his head and hanging down. So I just dremeled the shit out of that and threw the Spartan-esque Slanesh Lord head on it, and I think he looks fucking awesome. These guys again were another like I forgot to mention the Warriors, the two Crushers, and these guys were all scoring my scoring units. But these guys were definitely the MVPs of every like pretty much every game of this tournament, basically for me. Um, I'll probably go over why. I'll go over why later, but because I don't want to ruin the games. But these guys are awesome. Knights. I know back in like V9 and V1, people were complaining about how weak Knights were. And I don't think it. I think it was more of the prevalence of a lot of AP stuff like spears on shitty little fucking skeletons was I think the big gripe that people had. But a one-up armor save on these guys, and they fucking like just a unit of 5 of them can wreck shit. And I know there's lists out there that use like 2 units of 6 or 7, and they're amazing. I forgot how awesome knights were, and I'm so glad I still have like I have 5 more that need to be better, like painted up better, and then I have back in I think 6th before they nerfed the amount of knights you could take, and when you can have knights in core. I think it was 6th edition for Warhammer. I actually bought like 20 plus fucking of these knights that I have sitting in my basement somewhere, ready to be painted up, and I'm very tempted with how knights have been performing for me to have a more more of them in my army essentially, and see how I can do with them. But anyways, on to the next unit. Next up are my 2 blood beasts. First one is the one I used from the Age of Sigmar starter set. Uh, I think it was like the Korgar or some crap like that, but he was perfect for a fucking blood beast. I do like the actual model that they had from GW, but I didn't have one on hand, and so I used this bad boy. I'm not sure how I feel about the cork base that he's on, but after doing like a different, like adding the paint to it, it actually looks fairly decent. And then I was actually really pleased with how he turned out. Uh, with the like I used Archaon's sword from the AOS model and shoved that down into his freaking the back of his or into his back. Um, it can actually still come out too, so I I have it. Originally, I hadn't bought an extra one, but now I do have an extra one that I got off of a Vit's place. So I probably won't worry too much about that, like taking that out. But these guys, I ran one in Brawlers back in like V9, right before they dropped V1, and they were awesome then. They had the ability to take the mark of their like of the uh, character they were attached to, and they gave the character themselves hatred, which is just amazing on our characters. Oh my god, I miss that so much. But the way they are now, they're really not bad. Like if you have a bunch of big models that are like basically if you can get target saturation like 80 like an EDC or like my Dragon Lord, I have 2 blood beasts. They're there to take like they're not going to survive heavy shooting. But if they can get into combat, they're going to fucking wreck shit because there's like as long as they don't go against something that's able to kill them first turn, or if you throw them in, okay, I would say throw them into either other monsters, preferably ones that are slower initiative wise, or throw them in with your units. Like don't send them in alone unless you're going against something like dwarves that have shit initiative. Like if you can go into something that has less than initiative 3, which is what these guys have, then definitely do it because they will go in and just fucking rape shit. They're with my general. This one was, I think, leadership or weapon skill 8, strength 6, 5 attacks plus 1 with frenzy, and then he had a 5 toughness, 5 wounds, and a 4 up armor save, and leadership 9 with the general. He, if he didn't die initially, he did damage. Like he did what he needed to do. Same with the other guy. Um, Against monsters, they actually did pretty well. Like I threw them into some monsters, and you'll see they did good against them. But yeah, they were there mainly for target saturation and to go into slower infantry, slow initiative or low initiative infantry rather. Then my last two things I think I'm gonna go over are my Wrath Priest and my um, Dragon. All right. So the first of my two characters, my Wrath Priest. This is one of the AOS dudes who's personally looks fucking awesome, but AOS they upped their like how big the guys are, so they're like heroic size. Hence why he's on a raised base, uh, so he can actually fit in the unit and fit on a 25 mil base for that matter. His paint job, he's still, again, he was a tournament fucking paint job, so he was done rushed, and so he doesn't have like the highlights after the wash. And personally, he looks fucking awesome with just as is, but he definitely needs some additional highlights on there. Again, I did the base. I highlighted the base, or I redid the base rather, while I was redoing all my other bases. But anyways, this guy, Wrath Priest, he's been like the default in my army lately, just because magic is meh for me. I prefer to get in and just beat face. My normal loadout for him is Hero Sword, Dueler Shield, and Crown of Scorn, and then maybe like a 6 up ward save or the Lucky Charm or whatever. So he's got. I think I sometimes I kind of I feel like I give him the waist hardened skin too, so he has 1 up armor save. But putting him in a unit of warriors or Wrath Chosen or warriors with like the Banner of Wrath I've done before and giving him 5 attacks at strength 5 are pretty good. He's basically a warrior just with or like a warrior champion essentially with an additional wound or 2 additional wounds. But yeah, he's been like a mainstay in most of my armies lately because of the MR2 that he gives the unit, as well as his dispelling as a wizard master. I fucking love that. Like it's something that I love about that we have in our army, and I'm hoping that when it comes down to it, that they keep that in the new book because it's just I love it. Like he's so versatile. He's so good at like just beating face and keeping your army protected against magic. So he was in the Warriors, and he was just basically there to, like I said, dispel shit and beat face. All right, and here he is, the Big Daddy, my Lord on Dragon. I actually had to resize this picture because it's so big. Hopefully, you can actually see how big he is comparatively. He's the if you don't know, he's the AOS Archaon model. He's still a work in progress, unfortunately for me. I'm still trying to get him to be like better. I actually followed the what's it called, the Warhammer TV channel on YouTube. They did a how to paint Archaon. I followed that to like the T, and I think this is probably one of my best paint jobs to date. Um, he my plan is to have like I took off basically what I did is I obviously took off his sword and put a hammer because that's how I am. I love big ass hammers on pretty much all of my shit. I cut off his stupid little ponytail, and as you can see, he does not have a cape. The cape was taken off because I wanted to have the two spears behind him on the throne, on his little mount throne, and then the plan is to take chain and have heads hanging from said chain of like his basically make it his trophy rack. Um, the base is I bought a chariot base offline, and it said it was 50 by 100, but as you can see, I like when I finally figured it out, I found out that it wasn't fully 50 by 100. It was actually shorter by like a fucking hair. So I glued one of the Shogun Miniatures magnetic bases onto the bottom of it, and I haven't finished it yet. Like I said, this is pre-tournament that I did this part. So my plan is to just put like milliput or green stuff on the stuff that is like kind of like that little piece that's overlapping or that's showing right there, and then make it more textured and make it look like part of the base so it actually fills out the full 50 by 100. Then he's on a metal plate that's just there because he's not as stable as I would like. Like he will stand up on the 50 by 100, but if you bump the table or something like that, his ass is probably just toppling over. Um, the what I did was to get him on the 50 by 100 is he's normally on something that's about the size of the like the blood chaos star that that he's inside of. That's about as like his base is about that big normally. So to put him on a 50 mil was a bit of a challenge. But I took a pillar from an old like Chaos Ruins set, and then I glued some like wooden dowels in on the like two of them on the inside, and then filled the rest of it like filled that thing with like just caulk for like your for your bathtub to give it some substance because otherwise it's just hollow. And then I drilled a drilled his put a little pin in his hand and then into the top of that, and then his tail is actually touching the back of or the actual chariot base, and I think I actually drilled a hole into that as well to keep him stable. But he's like I said, he'll stand up without the metal plate, but I'm not comfortable with him not being on there or with the metal plate not being on there. Um, the rider itself, like Arcan himself, I added like like I said, one of the things that my fluff and all my other general models that I had that represented Charon Ball, which if you had the 5th edition or the Realms of Chaos book, that actually had, I think it was Realms of Chaos. It might have been, yeah, it was Realms of Chaos book. Had that character was Charon Ball was a what's it called? Sorcerer, I think, for one of the retinues that they had for the example warbands. But Heron Ball was my general through my fluff, like through the Storm of Chaos and all other stuff. And his armor had like the bone, like the rib cage, as you can see on Archaon. I have the rib cage stuff, and then I threw in like a little gem in the center to kind of help get rid of like so it didn't look like it just ended in the chest piece. Like then like his gauntlets are like are painted to have like look like bone fingers or whatever. And then his helmet, he doesn't have the tusks like I normally have on my general, but he's got the badass helm with the crown, and then uh, his armor is, I think I painted it mostly black with a little bit of red in it. I think I may have done black armor with like a red outline of the edges and stuff, but yeah, I love this model, and I can actually take him off. So when I want to put the original Archaon model, which has everything on it, including the cape and his sword and all that stuff, I can do that, and he's magnetized on there. Um, but yeah, there's that. And I'll do one more shot of the overview of the army again and do the closing. Alright, so there you have it. That's my list. Um, it's it was kind of thrown together. I think I had I had 2 games with it before I actually went to this tournament. Um, essentially, like I said, I went with what I had painted and the fact that I wanted to use my giant Dragon Lord model. Initially, I think instead of the 2 Blood Beasts, I had an ADC, but um, I mean, target saturation for the Dragon Lord was a little bit better, I think. So yeah, I will try and get the what's it called? Get the battle reports up here shortly. Excuse me. Yeah, so that's sort of my army list. Did a little bit of a channel update in regards to how I was going to do these next 5 battle reports, where it's going to be more slideshow, talk over type stuff. Let me know what do you think about the army? Give me any questions, all that good stuff. And thanks for watching.